like glowing. If you're getting them, I'm getting them. Hi, hello, and welcome to the Bookish Life.
I'm Jess.
And I'm Tori. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, everything about that. Both of us, we decided to reread Fourth Wing and annotate it, which I had a great time doing that. Mm-hmm. Did you?
Yeah, it was really fun. It kept me awake too.
Yes,
I wouldn't fall asleep at night.
Yes. And then we also decided to read Iron Flame when it came out. We both have vlogs up on our YouTube channel. Mine's about 30 minutes. Jess's is 42 minutes. So yeah. I don't know. Does yours have spoilers for Iron Flame?
Yeah. Yours did
Okay.
not, but I do.
No.
You can't talk about it without spoilers.
I know. I wanted to just do like my reaction and like general overview. So yeah. Mine doesn't have spoilers for Iron Flame. Jess's does. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about spoilers for Fourth Wing and Iron Flame just because we really want to dive in and talk about our thoughts for both of the books because we definitely have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
It was a journey, but for Iron Flame, yeah.
I did really enjoy my reread of Fourth Wing, I will say that. It just reminded me why I loved that book so much.
Yeah, so I thought we could start with that one because I felt like I gave Fourth Wing 5 stars the first time I read it, and I also gave it 5 stars the second time. Did you give it 5 stars?
I gave it 5 stars the first time. This time I gave it more like 4.5 because I paid more attention to like the fantasy and the world building, and I was like, it's like the romance was what I was like so obsessed with in Fourth Wing, and that's why I think Iron Flame wasn't my favorite because of the romance. And the world building was like another story in Iron Flame. But Fourth Wing, I feel like it was just a very like simple fantasy, which as I know like a critique a lot of people have. I don't mind that because I'm not like a super like in-depth critical fantasy reader. Like I've read like The Way of Kings and I was not a fan. And I know that's like the ultimate fantasy. I was bored through so much of that because I need more to a story than just like battle and like political strategy. So that's why I think I loved Fourth Wing so much, just because there wasn't a lot of that in it.
That definitely makes sense. I mean, I feel like if we're comparing both of them, because I feel like it's hard not to, like now that we read both books, like Fourth Wing, you're really dropped into the middle of her life and like what's going on and her figuring out all these things and doing all these things, and it's very action packed, it's very fast moving. Like Fourth Wing takes place over a whole year, and Iron Flame is what, like 4, 5, 6 months?
Is it? But also it's kind of repetitive of Fourth Wing, which is why I also was like, this is so annoying, because like I liked Fourth Wing because it was new. Violet was like learning things and we were learning it with her, and then Iron Flame, the first half is like the same as Fourth Wing. And I was just like, this is annoying. Like, I've already read this story. And I feel like there were, like, more people dying in Fourth Wing, and you were on the edge of your seat more, and you're just learning more about Xaden. Like, can you trust him? Can you not? And now, like, that magic is not in Iron Flame.
Yeah. So, I mean, I loved the enemies to lovers back and forth with Violet and Xaden in Fourth Wing. Like, I highlighted so much in my reread of them because I love them so much. Like, I love, like, this connection. I love the dragons, like Tiernan and Andarna and Sigale. Like, I loved them. I loved just, like, that kind of dynamic between the 5 of them, I guess you can say. And the whole fantasy world was very simplistic, but you have to remember that in Fourth Wing they're just in a college. Like she crosses the parapet and they never leave
until the end, when then you're like, oh my gosh, there's like way more to this than we thought.
Oh yes. Well, obviously, because that's like supposed to be like the cliffhanger of the book. And so like I kind of expected with the ending of Fourth Wing to really dive into Iron Flame and just like keep that momentum going with the whole like, holy shit, that was like a very like big surprise with Brennan coming back and like all of these things and him still being alive, and like there's more to it, there's a revolution and Xaden's a part of this and he's leading it, and you know there's all of these things, and then in Iron Flame it's just like, oh, we're gonna go back to the college and just
for 300 pages, and Xaden's not gonna be there, which I hate it when fantasy romances pull them apart and they're not together for most of the book, and then I'm like, where is my romance? I hated that. And then her dragons were barely in the first half either because she's just stuck at this college. There's these professors that just like literally do whatever they want, and I'm like, why is there no like rules for like what they're allowed to do and not do, because also then I'm like, it seems like the political structure just does not make sense with their, I don't even know what to call it, their city, because like her mom's like a high general, but there's only like 3 people making decisions about anything, and I'm like, shouldn't there be like a council of people? And then like that professor that was like torturing her literally could do whatever he wanted. And I was like, the mom literally is one of the leaders of their city, and he's just like, I'm just gonna torture your daughter and probably kill her, but it's fine, and no one's gonna stop him or do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I don't, like, it just didn't, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, this does not make sense.
Yeah, I do know that this is her first fantasy that she's published, and I think for Fourth Wing it worked really well because it was in like a confined space. The fantasy world was really like, you're learning as Violet's learning it, because, you know, she has the knowledge and she's like explaining those things. And I picked up a lot of like the world building a little bit, like I highlighted a lot, and she was talking about like this and that and like the history. So I think it's supposed to give clues for Iron Flame for when you actually like see it.
Yeah.
Expanded and like when you go outside of the War College. But at the same time, I felt like it was way too much. It was like info dumping to the absolute fucking max.
I was so confused for so much of it. I was like, who are all these people? What, like, and then we have that Viscount, and I'm like, how is he connected to all of this? And like, just something thrown at you left and right the entire time. And I was like, this is too much. And then they'd be like, oh, Thomas died. I was like, who the heck was Thomas? Am I supposed to feel sad for Thomas? Like, I don't know who he is. Like, too many people. And I was just, yeah.
You have a lot of feelings. You have a lot of feelings.
It was too much. I literally read the entire thing yesterday. I was on page 30 yesterday morning, and I finished it at midnight. So I read the entire thing yesterday. It's very fresh in my mind, and I'm just like annoyed. Though I looked for theories, and like that made me appreciate it more for what the possibilities are for the next book, but not like the book itself. You know? So, and also they kept on going, like someone made a good point about their critique of Fourth Wing. They're like, if writers are so integral to their success, why are they killing so many of them in this college? Like even bonded writers. And so I noticed that a lot in Iron Flame, like when that one orange, I don't remember his name, the orange dragon that was mean with the one-eye one, like took out half of their like quadrant or something, like just took them out. And I'm like, why is this okay? They're literal bonded writers. And this guy just like takes them on. They're like, oh well.
Well, that's the guy that comes in that's like tortured, that tortures Violet.
Yeah, again, it's like he just gets to do whatever he wants.
Yeah. I don't know. It's this weird thing now where you understand that the dragons know more what's going on.
I did like that, yeah.
That, you know, I did. Okay. Oh, I feel like we're bouncing all over the place, but it's like we both have a lot of feelings. So forgive us if this is like a lot of back and forth. But it's mostly one of these things where I loved Indarna, I loved Taryn, I loved Sigale in the first book, right? I love the dynamic of them. I love seeing the other dragons. I love seeing how they all interact and everything. But then Indarna goes to this dreamless sleep because she has to. And I'm like, okay, that does make sense. But like you brought her in this first book and we never see her. And then she magically shows up at the end of the book and basically like saves everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get it, but also like, why would you introduce her? You know, I felt like it was like the first 300 pages could have been like cut down to 100. I can't think of like anything that was very important in the first.
It was classes again. It was just a repeat of Fourth Wing without Xaden.
But also like you're introducing Salone, which is Liam's sister, and that was nice, and the king's third son.
But nothing happened with them. I was expecting them to become like super integral to the plot, but they only use the king's son to get the notebook, and I feel like that was literally his only point being there. And like I wanted so much more of their characters. Yeah, because you get it in the second half, like how much they do help, like Salone, how she's a siphon. Yeah. And how important that is. I don't know. It's just like I understand the core of like the college and how the writers work and how the scribes basically can rewrite history, which that's not anything like new in a fantasy. Like no. Obviously.
Like, it's the people who write the history are the ones that won. Duh. Obviously. You know what I mean? I do like Jacinda. Is that her name?
Jacidia?
The one who is deaf? Yeah.
Jacindia? I always had to go back to the beginning because it says that she's transcribing the books.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, I don't know what that means. But I always have to go back to see what her name is. I always forget.
Yeah.
I do like her.
Yeah. Oh, I love her. I love Sawyer too. How he's like, I want to learn how to sign for her. Like, there's certain people that I do love, like the core people, but all these other people introduced, and I'm like, I don't really give a fuck. I don't really care. There's just too much going on.
Yeah, and too many people. And I don't understand, like, when that whole thing, like, Xaden's apparently this, like, descendant of a king, and, like, he had this whole other life and was, like, trying to form an alliance with this Viscount and had that relationship with Kat. I'm like, when did this happen? Because didn't he grow up in foster care? And then he was at the college for 3 years. So, like, when was he having this other life?
As a first year? As a second year?
But they can't leave. Like, the first years can't leave. And they can only leave when they're on leave for, like, 2 days. Remember, Violet tried leaving and got in trouble? She, like, almost was... You could be murdered for breaking your leave.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so
I'm like, when did this all happen?
I feel like Iron Flame is definitely more of a fantasy than a fantasy romance, which makes me sad because I love fantasy romance so much. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. But if you're going to go in that direction where it's more fantasy, then things have to fucking make sense.
I mean, if anybody knows, explain that to me. How the heck he's this, like, and he, like, literally that's his house that apparently can fit, like, 200 people inside.
They're rebuilding it, yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, don't worry. And then they fed them all, no problem. I was like, how do you have all these resources for all of these people to come live with you on zero notice? And there were just, like, a lot of things questioning. I was just like,
well, and that's the thing. Like, I can't tell if she's, like, setting all these things up to be answered in the next books or whatever.
Right.
But at the same time, when I read a book, I shouldn't be more confused at the end of the book for certain things that has been explained throughout the book. You know what I mean? Like,
when I told you, I was like, I'm on page 300. It's finally getting good. And you're like, that's where I got more confused.
Yeah, it was. Listen, I'm not a fantasy girly. I wish I was a fantasy girly. I've read Way of Kings. That was.
Oh, you've read that?
Awful. Yeah.
I didn't know you read it. Yeah, it was so boring.
Yeah. And then I did read Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, which is more of a fantasy romance. There's, like, a little bit of romance in it because Brandon was like, oh, you should read that. So I do like that. But, like, I just felt like there was nothing keeping me going. Like, I legit, before page, like, 300, I almost fell asleep, like, 5 times. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, for this to be one of my favorite books of the year, for Fourth Wing to be one of my favorite books of the year, I'm like, how is Iron Flame, like, this crappy? Like, what the fuck happened?
And I do feel like for some things, they just had, like, an easy explanation. Because I was talking to you, I was like, how do people not question Xaden bonding a dragon of someone he's related to? Because they said over and over again, it's either you go mad or you have a second power. And I'm like, why has no one asked this until 500 pages into this book? And then, like, 550, they're like, oh, yeah, people think it's his, like, uncle. And I'm like, yeah. So you're just going to explain it away and be like, oh, it's fine because you realized, oh, wait, why weren't people actually asking this until Violet did? And I feel like that was annoying. I was like, why did nobody? And then he's like, well, I was so powerful. They just, like, said whatever. And I was like, this city who is so terrified of all these people with powers, they're just going to be like, oh, yep, it's fine.
I also don't necessarily understand griffins and their riders either. Like, I don't. Even more. Like, I literally am like, did I miss something? Like, I really feel like I missed something. Like, I read this book, but I'm like, did I actually read and comprehend this book? I think
they tried to introduce too much.
So much. Like, way too much.
Because, like, there was not a lot in Fourth Wing.
Exactly. There was, because you're only in this war college. And I mean, like, I guess you could. I mean, I have said that, like, Fourth Wing is not very, like, info dumpy heavy, which it's not, because you're confined to this, like, war college. Only, like, Violet is only questioning what she's exposed to, which is very little. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like she's supposed to do this thing where, like, the second book is like, oh my God, Violet realizes it's way more. Like, her mother's keeping all these secrets. Like, Brennan's still alive. Like, what's actually going on outside of, you know, the scribes, the writers, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like, when you expand, there's a way to do that where the reader isn't confused. Like, it's like, like Violet had all of this information and she was telling you all these things. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I pieced it together from this book, and oh, I transcribed this book and this book. It's like, that's not helpful to me. Like, I'm even more fucking confused. Like, I don't get it.
She did piece a lot of things together herself, like, pretty easily.
Which, I mean, like, knowing her background and her father was a scribe and how she was trained as a scribe, like, I don't know, I just felt like that was convenient.
Have you looked up theories, though?
Yes.
For the next book? Oh my God, there's so much. I'm like, ooh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, that would... Which I'm like, okay, so then, like, that's why we don't know a lot, because they're setting it up for the next book, because, like, stuff about her dad and about, like, her being able to see Liam, and then with Xaden and, like, that weird conversation about Xaden's mom that was just, like, plopped in there, and you're like, okay, well, this has to mean something. And so I feel like they wrote it And then we're like, well, we forgot about this. And any loose end, they're just like, let's plop this here. Let's plop this here. And it'll explain everything or like set up for what we need to. So I saw a lot of theories about that stuff, which made me not like annoyed as much. But like in the moment, I'm like, what is this supposed to mean?
Well, I can understand setting up theories, right? And like setting up things and for the next book. And like you want to get the people excited. You want people to have their theories. You want people to post about it and, you know, get excited. But at the same time, did it need to be 600 pages? No, not at all.
No. Okay, but have you read Vampire Academy?
No.
Oh my God, I need to talk to someone. None of my friends who have read Vampire Academy have read this yet.
Okay, Monica messaged me. She said it reminds me of Dimitri at the end of Vampire Academy.
Yes,
and I was like, I don't get that. I don't get it.
And I'm like, someone had said that, and I was like, oh my God, this is exactly how I felt when Dimitri, that happened in Vampire Academy, and things happened. And now you're like, now it's happening to Xaden. And I was like, that's such a good correlation. I didn't even think about that. Yes.
But also, how did he become that? Like, I don't understand how
Xaden,
you become...
he pulled too much power. He, like, pulled it from the earth. Once you pull power from the earth, you turn.
But Venin, so can anyone? Can anyone do that?
Yeah, that's what Jack... Okay, also I was annoyed. I was like, so Jack was horrible. They thought he was murdered. He comes back from the dead, and they're like, yep, it's fine. And I was like, no one's going to question, like, Violet's not going to question, what the heck is this guy doing here? He's probably going to kill me or do something bad. They're like, no, it's okay.
Well, didn't Nolan heal him?
Yeah, and then, like, that was totally skipped over. Like, why?
But
like,
also, why is he Venin or whatever? How did he become that?
I don't know. They, like, he wanted power and, like, started working for the bad guy, like the sage. But I don't know how. And I don't know why Nolan wanted to keep him alive. But then Nolan was using the cure on him, or, like, that potion that doesn't let them talk to their dragon. But I don't know why. And then Nolan also, though, turned on her. So, like, I'm saying there's just too much that happened with no explanation. And I get that it's, like, to build mystery and, like, things for the next book. But I'm like, literally, how did anyone let Jack just, like, walk around and do what he wanted? Was it really, like, their leaders? But then I'm like, why was no one, like, looking at what their leaders were doing? Like, obviously, I don't think her mom knew, right?
I don't fucking know what she knew. And now she's dead, so we don't know.
Well,
like,
yeah,
we don't know what she knew.
But now I'm like, are these people actually dead?
But, like, also, how did she put all of her power into the thing to make Iron Flame? Like, I literally just thought
Sloane took it and put it in.
But I thought just all 7 dragons had to blow fire on it.
But there were no dragons. Literally, it was only Darna, however you say her name. It was only Darna, and none of the other dragons came to, like, activate their ward. But they had to use her on that, so they couldn't use her on the other one. But I'm like, where were all the other dragons? There were no 7 dragons that activated it. It was just the mom's magic.
Yeah.
Did I miss that?
No,
because there was that whole discussion about Darna not being able to use her on the other ward.
Yeah, no. Tiernan, it wasn't Tiernan, it was Kath, which is no, not Xaden. Dane's dragon that had to come because Tiernan was already used on the other ward.
But, like, they never show them actually activating it. So I'm like, did they actually get the 7 dragons?
Yeah, I thought they were at the top and Darna was at the bottom with the mom.
I must have missed that because I was like, I thought they knew all. And is Dane's dragon black?
I don't know.
I thought Taryn was, like, the only black dragon.
Yeah. Seriously. But
I think there was just too much going on too quickly, too, for me to, like, fully grasp everything that was happening.
But also, I feel like when you read a fantasy book, you should at least have a general understanding about everything that happened. And I honestly feel like I shouldn't have to reread it to just comprehend the book.
I had to reread the last 2 pages. Because I was like, he literally just told her he's now Venin, right? Or how do you say that? Mm-hmm. And then the next chapter is him waking up next to her in bed. And I'm like, she just learned that he was the evil people. But then they're still, like, going to bed together and just, like, being fine.
Well, I think it's supposed to show that, like, she definitely still chose him. Because he was like, you're not going to love me after this. And he looks at her and she's, like, sobbing. Because she had tears on her eyes when she was sleeping. Right. So I think it's more
we just,
of like a...
missed that conversation. It was just like, I'm this, and then the next, it's night. And I was like, what happened? I also thought Xaden was going to have so much more, like, POV in this book. Because I thought Teddy Hamilton was, like, supposed to be huge in the audiobook. And I was so mad we did not get to see any of the letters he wrote to her.
Well, you saw it at the top. Do you read the top of the headings?
Yeah, we saw, like, a sentence. Yeah. But I was like, I feel like we would have gotten to know Xaden so much more and really believe this growth of their relationship if we saw at least one letter he wrote. Yeah. We didn't get to see a single letter.
But I'm also really confused because it's like recovered letters from Violet Sorrengail to Xaden Ryerson, and I'm like, what do you mean recovered? Like, is this whole thing they're all gonna be dead at the end of this? Like, that's
what I was thinking. I was like, would she really kill them all?
I'm very confused.
I don't know.
It's just I did see a theory with the whole like mind reading thing. Well, intention reading thing from Xaden. I saw a theory from another fantasy romance podcast, like from a fantasy podcast on TikTok, and she was like, it's because in the room, this wasn't italicized, so she wasn't saying it in her head.
Yeah,
she was thinking it. And so when that came up in Iron Flame that he was an intention reader, I wasn't like, oh my God. Like, I already kind of like.
Well, and they were pretty obvious about it because I saw that before my reread, and then I noticed the scenes that they pointed out, and then they used the exact same scenario where it's like she thought something and he responded to it. And she's like, I didn't realize I said that out loud. Use the same exact phrase right before she was like, oh my God, you can read minds. So that wasn't really like surprising. I did see the theory though about what they think her second power is going to be. And I think that did you see any of those theories?
Oh, that she can talk to the dead or like bring the dead back or something?
Because she also had said like about Sawyer, she told the god, she was like, you can't have him. So she like, and it was in italics. And so that's like her talking to the god in her mind.
Okay, and so that is confusing because I listened to the audiobook.
Oh, did you not? I thought you were doing both.
For the last half, I just would lay in bed and just listen. You know what I mean? Okay. I wouldn't read along because I don't want to sit up and
those. Okay.
But that's the thing with the audiobook. I can't tell what's italicized and what's not.
And that's really important to this story.
That is extremely important because I would have never picked up that.
But they think that her being able to talk to the dead is going to let her figure out how to fix Xaden.
Yeah. Which I'm like, okay, that's a fair point to like set up things. Okay, I get it. I got it. That's fine.
Yeah.
I just feel like the whole thing with like with Xaden and all of his people and Kat and the Viscount meeting like the mom and everyone, like with Violet and then Brennan showing up. And I'm like, I just feel like there was a better way to do this whole thing where you have like these people and then the rebellion and they're meeting and it's like, oh, if you want to save everyone. Like I really felt like I blacked out the first 300 pages of the book because I literally only remember the last 300 pages. And that's sad. I should not have that. Other than Violet and Xaden going to see each other. Like flying back and forth.
Well, because they didn't do anything important.
No. Besides like getting the king's son to get that book and Xaden like giving those daggers, and I still don't understand the alloy with the daggers. I don't understand.
Well, like from the beginning when they talked about runes, I was like, runes have been used. I think it was the City of Bones series by Cassandra Clare. Like they used runes as magic, and so when they were talking about runes being on these things, I was like, am I going crazy? But isn't that magic? And like nobody mentions runes being magic at all in the first book, and then they talk about it in the second book. So
see, I think of Rune Danon. So.
Well, and then I just like compare this to like Crescent City and like ACOTAR, and I'm like, the world building's much better in those books and like the politics and like the battles. So I just feel like there's a lot that feels just like, oh, we forgot to do this, let's put it in here. Oh, we forgot to do this, put it in here. Or, oh, we want to use this, we're gonna put it in here, but we'll wait for later.
I heard a lot of people say that like they don't think it was edited very quickly, and they think it's because it was like supposed to come out. Like this has only been out for 6 months, so like to have another release like this 6 months after, like that's a lot. I don't even think that she realized how big Fourth Wing was going to even get.
No.
So I wonder if she like just sped through it, you know what I mean, and didn't really have like a lot of edited stuff. I don't know.
I don't know about this book because she had already started writing it before Fourth Wing came out, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
Like, it's not like, because publishing works so far ahead that I think Fourth Wing had been done for a while, because arcs were out for Fourth Wing for a really long time. And so, and then I'm thinking, well, like, indie authors do really quick turnarounds, even fantasy indie authors, so.
Yeah, but also I heard that this was supposed to be like a 5-book series.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be as quick of a turnaround for the future books, but I think the publishing thing, though, like, the printing of them was too rushed, too, because I didn't tell you, I was reading it, and I literally, my nail grazed the top and scratched part off. I didn't even, like, scratch it hard. I just picked it up, and it took off part of the top. Like, this is so poorly made, and it's making me upset.
Well, my dragon one wasn't like that. Like, with dragon sprayed edges?
No, it's, like, it feels such different quality.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got the special edition of Mia Sheridan's book, and it's like so pretty and like embossed everywhere. And like they couldn't even have done like even just like a dragon on the front. Like do something.
Yeah.
It's put the dragon on the front. Like I don't think that would have been as much like time as they needed. I don't know. But and I've seen so many messed up copies. This has a typo on the copyright page.
Yeah, mine does too.
And I know that it's missing a dragon from one of the chapter headings. It's just things that like should have had the time taken to like make sure these were okay. And I've never seen a release with that many misprints and damaged books before.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like the whole thing overall, like, listen, we've said this in one of our first podcast episodes. We are not people that can sit down and dissect a book like critically and with very like intricate thoughts. Okay, we are not those girlies. I wish we were. Alas, we're not. But these are our thoughts because I just felt like I was exhausted. Like I was supposed to do a fantasy romance reading vlog and I'm just like, I need a break from fantasy right now. Like I can't
I think I was like 400 pages in. I was like, I just want to stop reading, but I had to finish before today. But I literally, if I didn't have to rush through it, I would have just taken a break. I was like, this is like boring and I like don't have any interest in reading this right now. And I want to put it down. But I never felt that way with Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing, I was flying through.
Oh, you know what? I wanted to say something too. I was talking to Brandon about this. Oh, I was talking to him. I was like, oh, I finished Iron Flame. He was like, oh, how was it? And I was like, do you remember from Fourth Wing, like the little golden dragon? He's like, yes, the little golden dragon that's like attached to the big black dragon. I'm like, you remember me talking about that? He's like, yes, I actually do listen to you. But anyway, I was telling him with Violet and her chronic illness that Kamal, she's one of my patrons. Is she on your Patreon too? Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's amazing. She went to the Union Square like midnight release and she was saying that Rebecca Yarros talked about the chronic illness a lot and how like people who have a chronic illness when they first started reading Fourth Wing, they immediately picked up on it because like you recognize those things. And I remember reading this like going on my Insta stories and being like, does this have chronic illness rep? And people were like, did you not see the tropes? And I was like, no. I felt like such an idiot. But I liked the chronic illness rep so much in Fourth Wing, and I just felt like it went away in the second book. Like, oh, her joint pops out of place. It's like, oh, fucking cool. Like, yeah, that happens. I mean, it's very consistent still, but also with Andarna having like the little wing that's like underdeveloped. I was like, did you have to do that? Like, I don't know. I just felt like it was kind of like, not my favorite.
I did like though how Andarna like chose her before she even like, she was like, you were 18. I knew I had to wake up. And so she like knew in her how strong she was, which like you said, I loved that about her in the first book, which is why I hated Dane so much because he coddled her so much and like you don't need that from people around you. And that's why Xaden saw her strength and power and he was like, you can take care of yourself and I want to help you take care of yourself, not I just want to smother you and like hide you away, which had very similar parallels to A Court of Thorns and Roses. And so that's why I was like, Dane is trash. But I don't know how I feel about Dane's like redemption in the second book, if I trust that or not. But I do think that was a lot more focus in the first book versus this one where it's just like, oh, she was weak, but she like could still accomplish literally anything she wanted.
She may not be physically strong and she has to like work towards that while she's training in Fourth Wing and she has to work towards that in Iron Flame and she has to like keep up with that. But it's like, how many times can her joints pop out before she's like, maybe I should take it fucking easy. Like maybe I should just, you know, like not do some of this stuff. You know what I mean? But also there was one part where Xaden, when he found her after she was tortured and Dane was going to kill him and she was like so weak because like she could barely like stand up and Xaden's like, no, this is Violet's choice. And she's like, yeah, I want that. And like she was even so weak to stab him that Xaden came up behind her and like pushed the knife in, and that was like one thing I'm like, yes, like, but that's like the tiny moments we get, and I wanted him to like grovel more. Do you know what I mean? Like he kept all of this stuff from her and we never really got to see that in Iron Flame. I don't know, the romance was lacking.
Well, yeah, because then also we didn't see any of those letters, and I feel like that was part of him trying to make it up to her. But I did really love, I've seen a lot of TikToks for the last scene where Sgail, I cannot say that name,
Sgail was
like, I chose you. And he was like, but so did she, or something like that. And that was with him choosing to become like the Venin, where like Sgail was like horrified of his choice. But he's like, I'm not doing it for you. I'm literally doing this for Violet because I will do anything for her. Because no one chooses him, even like, I think it goes back to his like issues with his mom leaving in the beginning too, and like Kat and never like feeling loved. But Literally anything he does is for Violet, but we don't see that a ton. He also just like disappears a lot on like missions, and I'm just like, where is Xaden right now? But we don't see that except for like those little scenes, and then like his epic like thing at the end.
Yeah.
Sacrifice.
I would love to see all of those moments from his point of view, though. Because, like, could you imagine where he's like, you're not going to love me once you find out, when she's like piecing together that he was a mind reader, and, you know, Violet's like, did you ever use this against me? Like, oh my God, like, you used your powers. Like, do I feel like what I feel for you? Is it even real? Like, did you just manipulate me? And I would just love to see that from his point of view. Yeah.
Well, even when like his, like, what is it called? His exchange with her mom, how her mom was like, you owe me, and like the debt he owed her was that he would look after Violet at the war college. So, but I mean, and there was a lot that he was like not honest to her about.
Exactly. I think there's even more that he hasn't told her, because there's a point where the mom was like, because she was like, you know, gave him 107 slashes, and the mom went to say like, you need to know it's a something culture. It's part of the culture of blah, blah, blah. Like, it starts with a T. Wherever he's from. Tirandor? Yeah, Tirandor, because he's from there. It's a Tirandor culture, or culture of Tirandor, and it cut off. The mom never got to finish that. So I think there's actually like more to it. It's not like him just taking 107 slashes to him, but he also has one on her heart. And I'm like, is this supposed to be like a culture thing where it's like when you take on the responsibility of someone else? Like, I just feel like we were supposed to learn so much in Iron Flame, and we did learn so much, but I felt like it was like not what everyone was expecting. Like, I wanted to learn more about Xaden's culture and where he come from, and his dad, and more of like the rebellion back then and how he died. And I wanted to learn that. I didn't give a fuck about Cat and the Viscount and this and that, and I still don't understand the Griffins. I still don't understand Venin. Like, what the actual fuck is happening? Like, I'm like, we did
not learn anything about the original revolution.
Exactly. So I'm like, Xaden is literally like doing all of these things because of that, but we don't understand any of it. Like, nothing was explained. That's so frustrating.
Were also like those executions. I forget, there was like a character that was like the one that there was someone who was looking into books, and he got executed for requesting books, and there was another character that was like, well, what about this execution? And they're like, nobody was killed there. What are you talking about? He's like, I was there and literally witnessed my parents being murdered, but it's like completely wiped from everything. And that was like the recent stuff. So like, what were they hiding from those things? We still have no idea. We have no idea how. Well, do we even know how their revolution failed?
No, but I do know there's something with Brennan and that person, Terran's old rider. Terran's old rider saved Brennan 5 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think he's dead.
No, he has to be. Terran wouldn't be able to bond with someone.
I think that he's a Venin. Like, he used too much of his power to save Brennan, and he, like, took it. But they never said that he's dead. I think they said that he, like... Well, then I think, like, if they become, like, Venin, you're basically dead. So but that wouldn't make sense for Jack with his dragon.
You would still have the bond. Yeah, because
Would you though, or could the bond, snap?
No, because Sigale and Xaden are still bonded.
Yeah, I mean, that was just one of the theories I saw, that the guy that actually had saved Brennan isn't actually dead either. Because I think, like, the wording didn't say that he was dead. It just said, like, he used too much of himself to save Brennan. Also, I saw a theory that the sage is actually Sage is actually Xaden's mom. I saw a theory for that.
Okay, but Xaden was having nightmares about the sage. Do you remember that?
Well, Violet was too.
They both were.
Yeah. And I was like, that would be annoying because they literally mentioned his mom once. But then some people think that the sage is. But I don't know how long the sage has been around to know, like, who it could be. Like I said, or they said, another theory I saw, it could be her dad, and if he's not actually dead, or her birth father, because her mom never calls him your dad. She says it's the love of her life, someone pointed out, and not, like, so they think that Violet has a different dad, and that her dad is actually, like, the sage.
But also, too, she had that fever when Violet was like, she was pregnant with Violet, and that's why she has the silver hair or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wonder what that was about.
Or unless her dad actually has silver hair and it's not a fever, like they lied. That would be juicy. But I'm, like, going to be disappointed if none of these theories are right, and, like, everybody comes up with these, like, wild fan theories, and then it's like, no, it's really this.
See, I can only go down the theory TikTok path so long before I'm like,
I only spent like 10-15 minutes scrolling this morning looking at the theories, and I was like, these are good. So
yeah. See, I don't come up with these things.
No, I don't either. I literally took them all from TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a hot mess of an episode.
That was literally all over the place. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. But I hope you enjoyed our thoughts and some of our frustration.
What was your final rating?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, we didn't even say our final rating for Iron Flame. What did you land?
Mine's the same as yours.
3.5, 4.
Yeah. I don't like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, the potential is there, and I kind of appreciate it more as a 4, but like, I don't think I can give it a solid 4 unless I see it play out in the next book and be like what I think.
Yes. Yeah. I just feel like a lot of people had certain expectations for Iron Flame because of how amazing Fourth Wing was. And it definitely did not. Like, I thought it was me that like, okay, maybe I'm missing something. And like, it's me. I don't think like I'm reading it and I'm just not feeling it or whatever. But I felt like it just didn't live up to it. And the more like my vlog that I posted, people are commenting. They're like, nope, I agree. 100%. I gave it 2.5 stars. I gave it 3 stars. I gave it this stars. I gave it that stars. I'm like, oh God. Yeah, it's a lot of people talking about that. So yeah, like I said, both of our vlogs will be linked in the description box on YouTube. But you can follow us over on our YouTube channels if you're listening on Apple and Spotify. You can see our whole reactions, really great reactions to rereading Fourth Wing, and then our frustrations with Iron Flame. I have to watch your vlog, but once it goes up.
Yeah, it'll go up soon.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much for listening and watching. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, leave us a rating. Let us know what you thought about the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, what emoji should they drop in the comments? Pick one.
Is there a dragon emoji?
There's like a little like...
They do the fire emoji.
Yeah, that's what I did for my vlog. Drop like the fire emoji, flame emoji for Iron Flame, or black heart for Iron. Iron's black, right? Or is it? Okay, never mind. Don't. Whatever. It's fine. It's fine. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed our bookish life, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.